My name is Ellie, and I live in a small town that is quiet but a bit dull. Life here is as uneventful as water, repeating the rhythm of the previous day, with no surprises and no waves. And I, in this environment, am like a rose forgotten in the corner, blooming beautifully all by itself, but with no one to admire it. I have long, dark, shiny hair that falls like a waterfall to my slender waist. Whenever the breeze blows, the hair sways gently, as if whispering the desires of my heart. My eyes are like deep, dark lakes, hiding endless mysteries and stories. My delicate face is like a work of art carefully carved by heaven, with soft lines and fair skin as white as snow, glowing with a faint radiance. I have a slender figure with graceful curves, and every movement exudes charming charm. However, in this small town, my beauty is only a decoration, and no one can truly understand the loneliness and longing in my heart. My husband is an adventurer obsessed with finding the legendary evil treasure. In his heart, there is only the mysterious treasure, an evil object that has been given endless power by legend. In order to find it, he has traveled to the ends of the earth, consulted countless ancient books and documents, and interacted with all kinds of mysterious characters. In his eyes, the treasure is the whole meaning of his life, the goal for which he has struggled all his life. Recently, he finally found a key clue. It was an ancient parchment with mysterious symbols that contained information about the secret treasure. When he showed me the parchment, I saw the light in his eyes, a kind of almost insane longing. However, as he delved deeper into the clue, he gradually retreated. It turned out that the place to which this clue pointed was full of unknown dangers. Legend has it that it is shrouded in evil forces, and anyone who goes near it will face the threat of death. My husband's face was full of fear, and he began to hesitate and back down. He was worried about his life and worried that he could not bear the unknown dangers. I looked at the mysterious parchment, and a strong desire welled up in my heart. That desire burned like a flame in my heart, uncontrollable. I longed to break away from the monotony of our lives, to experience the unknown excitement, and, even more, to witness the legendary evil secret treasure with my own eyes. In my opinion, my husband's retreat was a sign of cowardice, and he had given up an opportunity that could change our destiny. I tried to persuade him, telling him that we could not just give up. In my gentle but firm voice, I described the bright future that would await us if we found the secret treasure. We could use the power of the secret treasure to change our lives and become masters of the world. However, my husband was unmoved. His eyes were filled with fear and confusion. "Ellie, you don't understand. It's too dangerous. We can't risk our lives." My husband's voice trembled as he tried to convince me to give up the idea. But I could not heed his advice. My heart was drawn to the mysterious secret treasure, and I decided to explore it alone. I knew it was a dangerous decision, but I could no longer turn back. I began to gather information about the mysterious area and prepare for my adventure. I put on a light leather armor that fit my body and accentuated my figure. I hung a delicate dagger around my waist as my weapon of self-defense. I tied up my long hair and put on a wide-brimmed hat to hide my beautiful face. I didn't want others to recognize me easily, and I didn't want my husband to discover my plan. The day I left town, the sky was gloomy, as if it were foreshadowing the danger I was about to face. I glanced back at the familiar town, and a sense of reluctance welled up in my heart. But soon, I strengthened my resolve and turned to set out on my journey to find the secret treasure. Along the way, I encountered all kinds of difficulties and challenges. The rugged mountain roads made it difficult for me to walk, and the dense forest hid countless dangers. I was once scratched by thorns, and my clothes were stained with blood. I was also attacked by wild animals, and barely escaped with my dagger and courage. But these difficulties did not make me back down, but instead strengthened my determination to find the secret treasure. As I continued to delve deeper into the mysterious area, the atmosphere around me became increasingly eerie. There was a faint putrid smell in the air, as if countless pairs of eyes were watching me in the dark. I could feel the evil force drawing closer and closer, and my heartbeat could not help but quicken. Finally, I arrived at the place described in the parchment. It was an old castle, its walls covered in moss and cracks, looking dilapidated. The castle gate was closed, and 2 guards in black armor stood at the entrance, their eyes vacant, as if they had no soul. I took a deep breath and gathered my courage to walk towards the castle gate. I didn't know what awaited me, but I had no turning back. I had to find the evil secret treasure and fulfill my dream. As I approached the gate, the 2 guards suddenly stirred. They raised their weapons and blocked my way. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" one of the guards asked in a low, hoarse voice. I was startled, but quickly composed myself. I told them that I had come to find the secret treasure and hoped that they would let me in. However, the guards ignored my request, their eyes full of vigilance and hostility. I knew that if I wanted to enter the castle, I would have to find a way to get past these 2 guards. I began to observe my surroundings, looking for any opportunity one could take advantage of. Just then, I noticed a small gap in the castle wall, which seemed to be accessible for climbing. I decided to take a chance. I took advantage of the guards' inattention to quietly go around the side of the castle and start climbing the wall. The wall was very steep, and my hands were chafed by the rough stones, but I didn't give up. I climbed step by step, and finally reached the gap. I carefully crept into the castle, both nervous and excited. The interior of the castle was dark, damp, and filled with a pungent smell. I took out the torch I had brought with me and illuminated the way ahead. In the castle corridors, I encountered all kinds of traps and mechanisms. Some were hidden spikes in the ground, while others were poisoned arrows shooting out of the walls. With my wits and courage, I avoided these traps one after the other. As I delved deeper into the castle, I discovered that it seemed to hold even more secrets. The murals on the walls depicted mysterious rituals and evil creatures, which made me feel creepy. I knew that I was getting closer and closer to the evil treasure, but at the same time, the danger was also increasing. Finally, I arrived in a huge room. In the center of the room was a huge stone platform on which sat a box that emitted a strange glow. I knew that it was the evil treasure I was looking for. I walked excitedly towards the stone platform and reached out to pick up the box. However, the moment I touched it, a powerful force sent me flying. I fell to the ground, shocked and terrified. I didn't know where this force came from, but I knew that I would face many more challenges before I could get the secret treasure. I stood up, straightened my clothes, and prepared myself for the new challenge. My adventure in this castle full of danger and mystery has only just begun, and the evil secret treasure seems to be waiting for me to uncover its mystery. I slowly got up from the ground. My heart was still pounding, and I was still shaken by the mysterious power I had just experienced. But I did not flinch. I fixed my gaze on the box on the stone platform, which was emitting a strange glow, and my desire grew stronger. I knew that getting the secret treasure would not be easy, but I had come this far, and there was no turning back. I looked around the room, trying to find a way to break the mysterious power. Just then, I heard a light sound of footsteps coming from the corner of the room. My body instantly tensed, and my hand unconsciously gripped the dagger at my waist. I looked warily in the direction of the sound. The flickering light of the dim torch cast eerie shadows on the wall. As the footsteps drew closer, a figure gradually emerged from the shadows. It was a man, lithe and agile, dressed in a black leotard that accentuated his perfect figure. He wore a black mask over his face, revealing only a pair of deep, seductive eyes that seemed to look into people's hearts. I didn't think anyone could find this place and walk into this room alive. His voice was low and full of magnetism, with a hint of mockery and teasing. I was shocked, but quickly calmed down and tried to sound calm. "Who are you? Why are you here?" He let out a soft laugh, which echoed eerily in the empty room. "As for me, you can call me the demon thief. As for why I'm here, of course it's for the legendary evil secret treasure," he said, pointing at the box on the stone table. Hearing his words, a sense of caution welled up in my heart. It turned out that he was also here for the secret treasure, so he was likely my competitor. I clutched the dagger tightly, ready to deal with any possible attacks from him. "You don't need to be so nervous. I have no ill will towards a weak woman," he said, taking a few steps forward and eyeing me up. I could feel his gaze linger on my curvaceous figure for a moment, and a wave of disgust washed over me. What do you want? I found the secret treasure first, so don't even think about taking it, I said loudly, trying to muster up some courage. He laughed again. Found it first? This secret treasure has never belonged to anyone. But since you are so pretty, we can cooperate. Cooperate? Why should I trust you? I asked coldly. He walked over to me, close to me, and I could feel the breath exuding from him. The breath had a faint fishy smell to it, which made me feel a little sick. You don't have any other options. You should have seen the mysterious power just now. On your own, you simply cannot get this secret treasure. And I have a way to break it, he whispered. I was a little shaken. He was right, the power just now really left me helpless. But I didn't dare to trust him easily. After all, he didn't seem like a good person either. First tell me, what method do you have to break this power? I asked. He smiled and took out a small crystal ball from his bosom. The crystal ball shimmered with a strange light in the light of the torch. This is a crystal ball that can detect mysterious powers. I have already found the source of this power through it. As long as we follow a certain method, we can break it, he explained. I looked at the crystal ball in his hand and was a little skeptical. But I had no better way, so I could only trust him for the time being. Okay, so how do we cooperate? I asked. He looked at me with a trace of unnoticeable smugness in his eyes. It's simple. You cooperate with me to crack this power, and after we get the secret treasure, we split it in half. I nodded, although I didn't want to share the secret treasure with him, but for now, there was no other way. Next, he began to walk around the room, the crystal ball in his hand constantly flashing with light. He muttered something, as if casting some kind of magic. I stood to the side, watching him warily, afraid that he might try to pull some kind of trick. After a while, he stopped and pointed at a mural on the wall of the room, saying, "The secret is in this mural. You see, it depicts an ancient ritual, and if we follow the steps of this ritual, we will be able to break the mysterious power." I looked in the direction he was pointing, and the mural did depict a mysterious ritual. There was a group of people in the picture, gathered around a huge stone platform with something like a box on it. They were holding all kinds of strange props in their hands, as if they were performing some kind of mysterious sacrifice. So what should we do? I asked. He took some strange powder out of his bosom and sprinkled it on the ground, then began to set up the pattern according to the mural. I helped him from the side, but I was still a little uneasy. Just as we were about to finish setting up, suddenly there was a violent shaking in the room. Dust fell from the walls, and the whole room seemed to be collapsing. I looked around in horror, not knowing what had happened. What's going on? I asked loudly. His face also turned very serious. It seems that our actions have disturbed the Guardian forces here. We must speed up, or it will be too late. He said this and sped up his movements. I did not dare to be idle either and cooperated with him fully. Finally, we finished setting up. Okay, next, we just need to wait for the ritual to take effect, he said. Just then, that mysterious force appeared again, even more powerful than before. It was like a black whirlwind, sweeping towards us. I gripped the dagger tightly, ready for the impending attack. However, he was unruffled and pulled a talisman from his bosom, chanting as he did so. The black whirlwind stopped in front of us as if it had been stopped by his talisman. Quick, now, let's go get the secret treasure, he said, rushing towards the stone platform. I followed him, my heart pounding with excitement. When we reached the stone platform, the mysterious power had been completely broken. I reached out and carefully picked up the box. Just as I got it, he suddenly turned around and grabbed my wrist. Give me the box, his eyes were full of greed. I was shocked and tried to break free of his hand. Didn't you say we'd share it? He sneered. You're so naive. How could I possibly share this secret treasure with you? I looked at him angrily, not expecting him to betray me. I struggled hard, trying to take back the box. But he was too strong, and I was no match for him. Just as I felt despair, suddenly, the door to the room was broken open. A group of guards in black armor rushed in, weapons in hand, and pounced at us. He turned pale at the sight and let go of my hand. He turned and ran towards the window. I looked at the box in my hands and hesitated. But soon I decided to get out of here first. I followed him and jumped out of the window. It was a dark forest outside. We ran through the forest, with the guards hot on our heels. As we ran, I noticed that he was stumbling a bit and seemed to be injured. A thought occurred to me. I wanted to take this opportunity to seize back the box. But I was also worried that he might lash out at me. We ran through the forest for a long time before we finally managed to escape from the guards. He stopped, leaned against a tree, and gasped for breath. "Are you okay?" I asked, but my mind was already planning how to get the box back. He looked at me without saying a word. I knew that he was now also wary of me. "What should we do now?" I asked. He was silent for a while and then said, "Let's find a place to hide first and talk about it when we're safe." I nodded and followed him as he continued to search for a place to hide in the forest. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew that the story between me and this evil thief was far from over. And that mysterious evil secret treasure would continue to lead us to unknown dangers and challenges. In the dark forest, the evil thief and I walked carefully, surrounded by silence, except for the sound of our rapid breathing and the occasional sound of a dry branch breaking. I held the box containing the evil secret treasure tightly, keeping a vigilant watch for any movement, while also keeping an eye on the demon thief beside me. His steps were still a bit unsteady, and every step seemed to be taken with great pain. But even so, his eyes still revealed a greedy and cunning look. Finally, we found a seemingly hidden cave deep in the forest. The entrance was hidden by some vines and shrubs, and it would be difficult to find if you weren't looking carefully. The demon thief was the first to go in, and after a moment of hesitation, I followed. The cave was filled with a damp, musty smell, the ground covered in moss and water dripping from the walls, making a ticking sound. "Let's hide here for now. Those guards won't find us here for a while," the demon thief said, leaning against the cave wall. His voice was a little weak. Obviously, the escape had taken a lot out of him. I didn't say anything, just nodded, but never took my eyes off him. I kept thinking about how to get the box back. After all, I had gone through so much trouble to get it. How could I let him take it so easily? I sat down in the other corner of the cave, holding the box tightly in my arms, my eyes vigilantly watching his every move. As the minutes passed, the atmosphere in the cave became more and more oppressive. The breathing of the evil thief gradually became steady. He looked up and his eyes fell on the box in my hands. A greedy light flashed in his eyes. "Give me the box." "You can't use it," he said suddenly, his voice carrying an unmistakable tone. I hugged the box tightly and said coldly, "Don't forget, you promised me that after we got the secret treasure, we would split it in half. But you want to keep it all for yourself. Why should I give it to you?" He sneered, got up from the ground, and slowly walked towards me. "Do you think you have a choice?" His voice was low and cold, and his eyes revealed a threatening expression. "You're a weak woman, and you are no match for me at all. If you know what's good for you, you'll hand over the box obediently otherwise." My heart tightened, and my hand unconsciously gripped the dagger at my waist. I knew that what he said was the truth, and with my strength, I could never contend with him. But I was unwilling to just give up. The secret treasure was not just a treasure to me, it was also my hope to escape from a dull life. "Don't push me. A rabbit will bite when it's desperate," I said with a forced calmness, trying to deter him with words. He stopped and looked at me, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Haha, you think a dagger can threaten me? Don't be naive. But I can give you a chance." His mouth curled up into an unkind smile. "What chance?" I asked warily, my heart full of doubts about his words. He slowly walked up to me, bent down, and leaned in close to my face, his breath spraying on my face, making me feel sick. "You spend the night with me, and I'll give you half the box," he whispered, his eyes gleaming with evil intent. A strong wave of anger and humiliation welled up in my heart, and I glared at him fiercely. "Don't even think about it, I won't agree to it." He straightened up and sneered, "Then don't blame me for being rude." With that, he reached out to grab the box in my hand. I quickly ducked backwards and drew my dagger, stabbing at him. But he was too fast and easily avoided my attack. He grabbed my wrist and twisted hard, and the dagger in my hand fell to the ground. Then he pushed me to the ground, pressing his hands firmly against my shoulders to keep me from moving. It's useless to resist. If you behave, I can make it a little more bearable for you. His voice was full of lust and greed. I struggled desperately, tears welling up in my eyes. I felt utterly desperate and helpless. I never imagined that I would end up in such a situation just for the secret treasure. Just as I was about to give up resistance, I suddenly thought of my husband. What would he think if he knew that I had done such a thing for the secret treasure? But now, I had no other choice. Okay, I promise, I said between clenched teeth, my eyes full of humiliation and unwillingness. He heard what I said, and a smug smile appeared on his face. It would have been better if you had done this earlier, he said, releasing his grip on me. I sat up and straightened my messy clothes, my heart filled with disgust and remorse. But I knew that this was my only chance to get the box back. That night, the cave was exceptionally cold, but my heart was colder than the cave. The evil thief lay next to me, breathing evenly and seemingly asleep. I lay quietly, my eyes wide open, as I contemplated my next move. I knew that he would not easily keep his promise, and that after dawn he would probably leave with the box. Therefore, I had to find a way to take back the box before he woke up. I carefully got up from beside him, keeping an eye on his every move, for fear of waking him. I walked gently to where the box was and reached out to pick it up. Just then, he suddenly opened his eyes and grabbed my wrist. "What do you want?" His voice was tinged with alarm. I was startled, but quickly calmed down. I couldn't sleep, so I wanted to take a look at the box. He stared at me for a while, then let go of my hand. "After you've finished, go back to sleep. Don't try anything funny." I nodded, picked up the box, and wondered how I could get rid of him. I opened the box, and a strange light emanated from it. The light seemed to have a mysterious power, and it fascinated me. Just as I was looking at the box, suddenly I heard a strange sound coming from outside. It sounded like someone was whispering, or maybe it was the cry of some kind of animal. A thought occurred to me. This might be my chance to get rid of him. I quickly hid the box behind my back and walked towards the cave entrance. "Where are you going?" he asked warily. "There seems to be some movement outside. I'm going to have a look," I said, trying to make my voice sound calm. He hesitated for a moment, then stood up too. "I'll go with you." We walked carefully to the cave entrance and looked out. In the moonlight, we could see several figures moving through the forest. They were wearing black cloaks that hid their faces, and they seemed to be carrying weapons. "Are those the guards?" I whispered. He shook his head. "No, these people don't have the same aura as the guards." Just as we were wondering, the people suddenly started walking towards our cave. I was shocked and knew that things were not good. "What should we do?" I asked. He frowned and said, "Hide first and see what they want." We quickly hid back in the depths of the cave, holding our breath and waiting for the men to arrive. My heart was beating violently, not knowing what would happen next. And where would the mysterious evil secret treasure lead us? I could only silently pray that I would find an opportunity to get out of the current predicament and leave here with this secret treasure. We hid deep inside the cave, not daring to breathe, our hearts almost jumping out of our throats. The footsteps of those figures grew closer and closer. Each step felt like it was stepping on my heart, making me so nervous that I could hardly breathe. The evil thief was hiding not far from me. His body was tense, and his eyes revealed a hint of panic, but more so, vigilance. Finally, the figures arrived at the cave entrance. They paused for a moment, as if they were observing something. After a while, one of them said in a low, hoarse voice, "I can sense their presence here. They must be inside." Hearing this, my heart sank, and I realized that we had been discovered. Without hesitation, they walked into the cave. The cave was very dark, and the torches in their hands illuminated a small area around them. The flickering light cast eerie shadows on their black cloaks. I clutched the box hidden behind my back, my fingers turning pale from the strain. I knew that once they found it, the box and our lives would be in grave danger. The men searched around the cave, their footsteps getting closer and closer. I could hear my own rapid breathing clearly. Just when I was almost desperate, suddenly, a slight noise came from the other end of the cave. Hearing the noise, the men stopped in their tracks, looked at each other, and then walked towards the direction of the sound. A glimmer of hope arose in my heart, and I guessed that this might be someone secretly helping us. But soon, I began to worry again, not knowing whether the person making the noise was a friend or foe. The evil thief also sensed this glimmer of hope, and he gave me a wink, signaling us to take the opportunity to leave. We moved cautiously towards the cave entrance, our footsteps so light that they made almost no sound. Just as we were about to walk out of the cave, suddenly, a figure flashed out from the shadows at the cave entrance. I was so scared that I almost screamed, but when I looked more closely, it was my husband. He looked tired, but his eyes were full of determination and concern. "Ellie, are you okay?" My husband hurried over to me as soon as he saw me and held me tightly in his arms. I had 1,000 emotions rushing through my mind, and tears flowed down my face. I was both surprised by my husband's appearance and ashamed of what I had done. "Why are you here?" I asked, choking back tears. My husband stroked my hair gently and said, "Ever since you left, I've been worried. I knew you would definitely go in search of the secret treasure, so I followed the clues you left and came all the way here." Hearing my husband's words, I was full of emotion and at the same time felt even more remorseful. At that moment, the evil thief saw my husband and his face turned very ugly. Realizing that the situation was not in his favor, he turned around and tried to escape. My husband was quick and agile and immediately gave chase. The two men engaged in a fierce struggle outside the cave. Although the evil thief was injured, he was still very agile. He brandished the dagger in his hand and stabbed at my husband. My husband skillfully avoided his attacks and then countered with a few punches. The sound of their fight echoed through the silent forest, attracting the attention of those who were searching inside the cave. Hearing the sound of the fight, they immediately rushed towards the cave. My heart tightened, knowing that the situation had become even more critical. I looked at my husband and the evil thief, not knowing what to do. Just then, my husband shouted, "Ellie, you go. Take the box and get out of here." I hesitated for a moment, looking at the box in my hands, a little reluctant. But I knew that now was not the time to hesitate. I nodded, turned around, and ran towards the depths of the forest. As I ran, I looked back at my husband and the evil thief, silently praying that my husband would be safe. I ran desperately through the forest, the sounds of fighting and shouting behind me growing further and further away. Suddenly, I heard a rush of footsteps behind me. I was startled and thought that those people had caught up to me. I turned around and saw that it was an old man wearing a long white robe. The old man had a kind smile on his face. He looked at me and said, "Don't be afraid, child. I'm here to help you." I looked at the old man, full of doubts. "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" I asked warily. The old man smiled and said, "I am the guardian of this forest, and I have always guarded the secrets here. I saw what happened to you and your husband, so I decided to help." Hearing the old man's words, I felt slightly relieved. "What about my husband?" I asked worriedly. The old man nodded and said, "Don't worry, he will be fine. I have already sent someone to help him. Now, you need to give me the box." I hesitated a little and held the box tightly. The old man read my mind and said, "My child, the secret treasure in this box has a powerful evil force. If it falls into the hands of the bad guys, it will bring great disaster to the world. Don't worry, I will keep it properly and not let it harm anyone." I thought about it for a while and finally decided to trust the old man. I handed him the box. After taking it, the old man nodded and said, "Thank you, my child. You have made the right choice." Just then, I heard my husband's voice in the distance. I was overjoyed and ran in the direction of the sound. I saw my husband running towards me, his face beaming with a smile, and he didn't seem to have been hurt. "Ellie, I'm so glad you're okay," my husband said as he held me tightly in his arms. I nodded and tears flowed down my face once again. "And the evil thief?" I asked. He was captured by those people and should no longer pose a threat to us, my husband said. Hearing this, a huge stone in my heart finally fell to the ground. We followed the old man back to the cave, and the men in black cloaks had disappeared. The old man told us that those people were an evil force that had been looking for the secret treasure for a long time, hoping to use its power to rule the world. Now that this secret treasure is in my safekeeping, you can go in peace, the old man said. My husband and I thanked the old man and left the forest. On the way home, I looked at my husband and felt a mixture of gratitude and guilt. I confessed to my husband the wrong choices I had made for the sake of the secret treasure. My husband did not blame me after hearing this, but held my hand tightly and said, "Ellie, let bygones be bygones. We will live a good life together in the future and never pursue those illusory things again." I nodded, secretly vowing that I would cherish the time I spent with my husband in the future and would no longer be blinded by desire. Our lives returned to peace, but this experience made me understand that true happiness is not about how much wealth and treasures you have, but about spending every day peacefully with the one you love. And that mysterious evil treasure will also become an unforgettable memory in our hearts. My husband and I walked hand in hand on the way home. The once familiar path felt different in my eyes. Everything around us was so peaceful and serene, in stark contrast to the thrilling experience we had just had. Sunlight filtered through the leaves and scattered on the ground in patches of light and shadow. The breeze gently blew, bringing the fragrance of soil and grass. However, my mood could not be as calm as this natural scenery. Along the way, I was silent, and my mind kept replaying all the events that had happened during this time. I remembered the depraved deal I made with the evil thief for the evil secret treasure, and my heart was filled with remorse and self-blame. I glanced at my husband next to me. His face looked exceptionally gentle in the sunlight, but I felt that I could no longer face him with an open heart. My husband seemed to sense my unease. He stopped walking, gently took my hand, and pulled me to a stone by the roadside to sit down. He looked at me with gentle but firm eyes and said softly, "Ellie, I know you are still blaming yourself for what happened before, but we have already agreed that the past is the past." I bit my lip, tears welling up in my eyes. "But I did such a thing, I'm sorry." My husband gently wiped away the tears at the corner of my eyes. "Silly girl, what I care about is that you came back safely. In my heart, you will always be the wife I love dearly. Besides, we were both enchanted by the legend of the secret treasure, which is why we got into such a predicament." I leaned my head on my husband's shoulder, and my guilt eased a little. We sat quietly for a while, enjoying the moment of peace. Then we got up and continued walking home. Along the way, my husband told me some interesting stories about the process of searching for me, trying to cheer me up. When we got home, everything was still as we had left it, except for a thin layer of dust. I started cleaning the house, and while sorting things out, I accidentally found an old diary. I had written it when I first married my husband, and it recorded our initial sweet times and my beautiful vision of life ahead. As I read those words, my heart gradually calmed down. I realized that I used to be so easily satisfied and cherish every moment with my husband. But now, because of an illusory secret treasure, I almost lost myself and this precious relationship. That evening, my husband and I sat at the table, eating a simple dinner. The soft light fell on us, creating a warm and peaceful atmosphere. I looked at my husband and gathered my courage to say, "From now on, I will really protect our home and not be tempted by those impractical things." My husband smiled and nodded. "I believe in you, Ellie. Let's work together to make our lives better and better." However, the calm did not last long. One day, a stranger arrived in town. He wore a long black robe, had a stern face, and a mysterious air in his eyes. He asked around town about us, and soon the news reached our ears. My husband and I both felt a little uneasy. We were worried that this stranger was connected to those evil forces from before. So we decided to go and meet him. When we found him, he was standing by a grove of trees outside of town, as if he were waiting for something. "Who are you? Why are you asking about us?" my husband asked warily. The stranger turned to face us. "My name is Shadow. I'm interested in the secret treasure you once had in your hands. My heart tightened when he mentioned the secret treasure. We no longer have the secret treasure, and it is an evil object, so you'd better stay away from it, I said. Shadow sneered. Evil? To me, it is just a symbol of great power. I know you gave it to the guardian of the forest. I want you to help me find him and get the secret treasure back. No way. We won't get involved in this again, my husband said firmly. The look in Shadow's eyes became fierce. You'd better think carefully. If you don't help me, I have ways to make you regret it. Just as the atmosphere became tense, suddenly, a flash of light appeared, and the guardian of the forest appeared before us. He was still wearing the white robe, with an amiable smile on his face, but there was a hint of majesty in his eyes. Shadow, you want to get your hands on this secret treasure again. Let me tell you, it will never fall into your hands, the guardian said. Shadow's face twitched slightly when he saw the guardian, but he quickly regained his composure. Old man, do you think you can stop me? For so many years, I have been waiting for this opportunity, and today, I will not give it up easily. With that, the shadow suddenly struck, sending a black energy towards the guardian. The guardian lightly waved his sleeve and blocked the energy. Then, the two sides engaged in a fierce battle. My husband and I nervously watched from the side, not knowing what to do. We wanted to help, but were worried that our own power was too weak and would instead cause trouble for the guardian. The battle became increasingly fierce. The surrounding trees and flowers were all affected by the powerful energy and fell one after the other. The attacks of the shadow became more and more fierce, but the guardian remained unruffled, skillfully deflecting every attack. Just when the shadow was feeling a little overwhelmed, he suddenly took out a black crystal ball from his bosom. The crystal ball exuded an evil aura, and he raised it high in the air, chanting a spell. Instantly, a powerful dark force surged from the crystal ball and swept towards the guardian. The guardian's face became grave, and he formed a hand seal, uttering a low incantation. A golden light shot out of his hand and collided with the dark force. In the contest between light and darkness, the entire space seemed to tremble. In the end, the guardian's golden light gradually gained the upper hand, little by little engulfing the dark force. Seeing this, the shadow knew that it would not succeed this time. It gave us a hateful look and disappeared into the darkness. After the battle, the guardian came to us and asked, "Are you okay?" My husband and I quickly shook our heads. "We are fine, thank you, guardian." The guardian nodded. "This time, it is thanks to you that he was not able to tempt us. Remember, the power of evil must never be unleashed, otherwise, the world will fall into endless darkness." We solemnly nodded, our hearts full of gratitude for the guardian. After this incident, we were even more determined to protect this peaceful life. From then on, we were no longer swayed by external temptations, and we managed our small family with all our hearts, cherishing every moment we spent together. And although the memory of the evil secret treasure occasionally still comes to mind, it can no longer disturb our hearts. We will take this experience with us and face the future bravely.